that is well respected in the community, well respected in France. It's the first deputy governor of Banque, Beau, is that correct? Yeah. And having him on stage is really a great honor because in all the topics that we discussed this afternoon, you know, the government, the regulator is an important part because we are talking about regulated business. And so it's my pleasure to the next 20-25 minutes to talk with him about, you know, what are the challenges, especially from a crypto and stablecoin and digital asset point of view, looking at the central bank. And you have so much insights, and it's a huge value for us to have you on stage and maybe start, you know, if you can share your views, what's going on from your perspective, and then we go on into questions.
Thank you very much for, I hope you can hear me, for your kind welcome, and good afternoon to everyone. Maybe a few comments. I had the opportunity to listen to the roundtables before this one, and I must say I will take the perspective of a central banker and a supervisor. I mentioned that because our mandate is to ensure financial stability. That's what we are required to do, and in particular, as many of the applications, innovation we see are in the payments area. We have a specific mandate, which is to ensure the safety and the efficiency of the payments. So that's my perspective. What I see is that there is a growing number and form of crypto assets. I'm not going to speak about cryptocurrency because I don't believe that what we are seeing are currencies, as many central bankers have made that point. I think that the issue for us is to try to anticipate the role these new forms and new crypto assets might play in the payment system landscape. And it's very hard to anticipate that. And I mean, I think it's 18 months ago. There was a dossier in The Economist, and I think the title was "A Solution in Search of a Problem," something around that, which means, I mean, that the role of these crypto assets in the payments landscape, it's going to be determined by market forces, meaning use cases, meaning demand. And I was interested to see that there is still big question marks about that. This being said, I mean, what we have seen is at least 2 generations of crypto assets and coins. In particular, the second one, the stable one, is now, I mean, at the forefront. I think when you look, I mean, from the outside or an external perspective like mine, you can certainly agree that they provide a number of opportunities to improve our payment system, and in particular, maybe the second generation, in the sense that it addresses some of the flaws, and I can come back to that, of the first one, and in particular in terms of convenience, speed, and cost of making payments or transferring assets and funds. And so the field of retail payments and cross-border ones, I think it comes regularly in the discussion. There is certainly a potential. I think in the former panel discussion, there was also a point made about wholesale clearing and settlement activities. So you can identify, I mean, a number of areas where there might be a contribution, and it will be up to the consumer at the end to determine whether they can find a market. For the time being, overall, crypto assets have a marginal role in the payments landscape from a global perspective. Then, of course, the question for us, seeing that, is what should be our stance? Given our mandate. And here, of course, we are. We like innovation like any of us, and as a consumer, I like it like any of you. But our task is to look at, I would say, the dark side, or I mean the risk side of these new products and schemes. And I think it must be recognized that these crypto assets bring risks to the payment systems if they were to come to production. And I think in two dimensions. The first one is settlement assets. I think that's why we don't want to qualify them as currencies. I mean, they don't have the qualities expected from a currency that can be interchange between central bank and commercial bank money, which are the two dominant form of currencies. And as payment schemes, they are exposed to a set of risk. You pointed and discussed the one form of compliance risk, which is related to AML, but there are many others: legal, operational, financial, consumer and investor protection, compliance rules. I mean, there is a list of it. So, what is our role? I think we need to make sure that these risks are addressed. I mean, if these products meet demand, and that's, I mean, not for us to decide, but if they are rolled out, I mean, the risk I was mentioning have to be properly addressed, so that, I mean, the benefit of innovation are not outweighed by the risk and the fragility these products might bring to the payment landscape. And so that's how to do that. I mean, when we started seeing the first generation of crypto assets, the first stance was to at least raise awareness about the risk. And at the Banque de France, it was 5 years ago. I mean, we make a communication alerting users on a number of risks that needed to be considered when using using them. I think the second step is to adjust the regulatory framework. I think it's an important issue. And here, I think, given the innovation taking place, we need to be pragmatic in doing that, taking into account that crypto assets is some sort of moving target. It's evolving rapidly. The attributes are evolving also. So it's we need to pay attention and be agile and pragmatic and proportionate in the regulatory evolution of the regulatory framework. And hence, our perspective at the Banque de France is to leverage existing regulatory framework. There are a number of functions which can be combined in different ways that are covered by these crypto assets, and including the stable coins, and so they can be covered by a number of framework. I think one of my predecessors, I mean, he used the e-money framework. That's certainly one way of addressing a number of risks. I mean, in France, last year, a new framework was set up to support the development of service providers of crypto assets. I mean, you have the framework of investment funds. So there is a basis to build on, and then we need to adapt this framework. I would certainly favor more strategy of that sort rather than going for ad hoc, specific, fully fledged framework for this type of assets. So in terms of regulation, we need to amend, adapt the regulatory framework. There is an important dimension that needs to be factored in, which is international coordination. Because as it was also mentioned, it was interesting, I mean, the number of, at least the ambition of the promoters of these schemes is they have a global perspective and international activity. So it's really important that there is coordination across regulatory authorities, across currency areas. And this is exactly what is taking place. I mean, it was mentioned, the FSB is working, I mean, in understanding, I mean, the risks, the challenges, and then looking at the type of regulatory steps that could be taken in a coordinated way. And the last thing we should do, I mean, the central banks have this characteristic and specialty to be able to deliver on their mandate, ensuring stability. They use supervision, they can influence regulation, and they can provide services. And here we touch in this issue of digital currency by central banks. I mean, it's. I think we are at a juncture where, I mean, we have used so far different ways of making central bank money, which is the anchor of the financial system and the payment system, available to the economy at large, financial institutions, individuals. And with the innovation we are seeing taking place, the tokenization of financial assets, I think there is a need for us to revisit and maybe amend the way we provide this settlement asset to the benefit of the overall community and the financial system. It means two things for us. First, we really need to invest in the understanding of the technologies. And that's exactly what a number of central banks and the Banque de France did that, started this process a number of years ago with this DLT type of technologies. I think we are proud to have been the first central bank to develop with the French banking industry an application, and we have a live blockchain on a smaller scale. So, I mean, following, understanding, having a dialogue with the industry on new technologies is really essential. And then we need to experiment new ways of providing our settlement asset. And the governor of the bank who intervened yesterday, I think, recalled that we have launched a call for projects. So we are going to formalize that by the end of the first quarter. But we are really open to contribute to experiments. Our focus is in the wholesale space, and I can come back to the reasons for that. But that's a general state of mind and of our own.
No, I think, thank you so much, because there are a lot of key messages, and let me summarize that, and please correct me. I think what's for me also very clear is, I think the central bank role is finding the right balance between innovation, because the innovation is accelerating, the pace is growing, and make this innovation available to the society. On the other side, you have a really important role to protect the consumer, to protect the institutional customers on the institutional side, and make sure that there is enough, there is stability in the market. So a really important topic that sometimes we forget. No? On the other side, which was also very important for me to hear these topics of digital asset and digital currency. It's not limited to one country. We're talking about global economy, global businesses, and working with other institutions like the Financial Stability Board, the OECD, then the other central bank, the European Central Bank, is important to drive this because I think business will flourish if there are less borders and people can work together. On the other side is also, as you said, providing, learning with the innovation. How can this maybe apply for your business is important to learn, and you're inviting the community also to be part of that learning curve. And then, secondly, last one, it's an important topic that I think in the light of digital central bank digital currency. We have always two aspects. One is the retail and the wholesale part. You believe, like other countries like Singapore, is also the wholesale part is maybe the right starting point to enable this kind of instrument between business to businesses under the oversight of a central bank like the MAS is doing in Singapore, etc. Is that a fair summary of your key messages?
Oh, yes, indeed. On the last point, there is a fundamental reason why we focus naturally more on the wholesale dimension.
Yeah.
Because, what is at stake is making central bank money available as a settlement asset. In the wholesale space, meaning in the relationship between financial institutions, the dominant settlement asset is central bank money, for a number of reasons, which goes far beyond, regulatory incentive. So it's really, it really contributes to the stability of the financial system. So if what we see emerging, which is this phenomenon of tokenization of financial asset and decentralization of transfer of this asset, there is really an issue for us about the way we provide this, because for the time being, all the system and the market forces have contributed to centralize the way we provide this asset to the financial industry. In the European context, it goes through a single system, which is called T2S. So if there is a decentralization movement, then we need to, and if it is lasting, which is, something that remains to be seen, the issue of scalability, these kind of points. But then there is indeed a public interest, an interest for the central bank to find ways to decentralize the way we provide this asset. And that's where we are really interested and actually putting on the blockchain.
No, I fully can only support you that, because I was part of the project, the utility settlement coin that UBS and other banks initiated, because I think if we digitalize the asset part, the security part, for an atomic settlement and reduce the counterpart risk and the execution risk, the cash part is important. Also, if we find a way under the oversight of the Banque de Paris, France, or the European Central Bank to tackle that, the complexity in the security processing business will go away, or at least minimize significantly. And so I fully fully agree with your statement. This is one of the biggest use cases. I see this in other countries, that working with the central banks, like in Switzerland with the national bank, to Swiss francs also on the security processing side, like the Swiss stock exchange is doing, is the key enabler, because you de-risking one part, but the other part is still high risk here. No?
But I mean, there is a specific challenge
Yeah.
beyond the fact that. We collectively need to experiment. An important issue is that if we move towards a decentralized organization of exchanges of financial assets, what we see is that there is an important risk of fragmentation of the landscape. Yeah. And here the issue is really the interoperability of the schemes that are being developed, and beyond the issue of scalability and cost and the like. This one also has to be addressed if really there is a future for something else than a centralized organization of market infrastructures, so in the wholesale space. So there is still a long way to go, but it's really important to investigate this.
Thank you so much for your insight and key messages, because I think it's important. You see, we have almost a full room here at the end of 2 days, and thank you so much for joining us. And I think it was a perfect, bringing this discussion to a closure. And thank you so much for joining me on stage, and hope you see you soon back at the Paris Fintech Forum. Thank you.